Living Forest, a competitive deck building game that is definitely family friendly in both mechanics and topic. We will control groups of super cute, super charming animal spirits in order to defend the forest from evil entities that are dropping fire tokens in them. How dare they? And we do that by again building our decks, building also a tableau. So there are a lot of things going on, but again the game remains very family friendly in essence, and it works that way. I played it with my kids. Sure, they're not little kids anymore, they're 9 and 10. And so I played the game with 2 players, so sometimes just with my daughter Amelia, sometimes also with the other kid, Luisa, so I played it with 2 and 3. Now, each player will have a starting deck. It's a deck building game, I told you that. And it's also tableau building. So you also have your personal area and you start with a cute little tree token there. Now, each turn will be divided into several phases. The first phase, everybody plays at the same time. So that's pretty cool. That cuts down on playtime. And then players, basically in that first phase, which is simultaneous, players will generate the energies, they will generate the resources that they will use in the following phase, which is the action phase, and that happens sequentially, starting with the first player that goes around every time. But during the initial phase where players generate their resources, each player will have their deck next to their board, and simply each player will start flipping cards and forming one at a time, stopping whenever you want, and forming a line. The cards have icons representing different types of abilities and resources on the left, and so you can line up that way so that the resources are visible. Some cards have the solitary icon. Now, you must stop drawing cards if you have 3 uncancelled icons in your line here. I say uncancelled because later on you may be able to acquire cards. Oh, suppose that was in my deck. That will allow you to cancel those icons, the solitary. So if you have 3, you must stop. Also, later when it gets to the action phase, if you have 3 uncancelled solitary icons in your line, you will be able to take only 1 action. If you have fewer than 3 uncancelled solitary icons, you'll be able to take 2 actions. So right there, that's a very interesting decision, because right now I have 1 uncancelled solitaire, so I can still go. And so that's an interesting push or luck element there. It may also be that having a sense of what's still in my deck, I may say, you know what, I have enough for what I want to do this round, and I want to keep enough stuff because I think I may be able to get a good synergy next round. So it's push or luck and some interesting planning there in when players decide to stop there. So once players decide to stop there, then again, based on how many uncancelled solitary icons they have, they will be allowed to take 1 or 2 actions using the energies that they have generated here. So for example, the sun is used to recruit new cards, and right now I'll be able to recruit, I have basically 3, 6, 7, minus 2 is 5 recruitment points. As the game progresses, my tableau may also be able to help me based on the tiles that I will place there that will give me different kinds of benefits. So for example, these 2 tiles that I have here, they generate 2 recruitment points every turn. Also, completing certain rows or certain columns of the tableau also gives you bonus points. So for example, by completing that one, I get an extra 1. And so right now I would have, again, from the line, I had 7 minus 2 is 5, 6, 7, I have 8 points to buy new cards if I decide to take that action. So one action you can take with the energy you generated, I think you guessed it, is to buy new cards. They come from these 3 lines of cards. There are 3 decks that they come from. These are less powerful, more powerful, most powerful, but also accordingly less to most expensive. The number you see in the bottom right corner is how much it costs to buy that card. And so with my, was it 8? Was it 9 points? I don't remember. Definitely. Anyways, I can buy 1 or more of these cards. Now, interesting enough, there's this evil entity that is attacking the forest. And so the more spirits we recruit, the more worried the villain becomes, and so more fire is going to be sent there. Suppose, for example, I decide to buy this card with 6. I know I can afford it. Maybe I would have been able to buy 2 cheaper ones, but suppose that's the one that I want to buy. Interesting enough, for a deck building game, once you buy a card, it goes on top of your draw pile, so you know your level available. It's funny because it's a mechanic that I encounter rarely, and I just happen to have found it twice recently in this game and in the G.I. Joe deck building game. Another thing is that the more cards we buy, the more fire the enemy will add at the end of the round. For each card of level 2 that we bought, a fire token with the number 3 is placed there. If somebody buys that card at the end of the round, that fire token will be added. And cards from this other area here will add the fire token with the number 4. Of course, the higher the number, the worse things are. You don't have to do it that way, but we like, once you buy a card, to place the token that will go on the board already. So as it's a nice reminder. So that's for buying cards. Spend your sun icons that you generated in your line to add the new cards on top of your deck. Something else that you can do is to put out fires by using your water that you generated. Right now I don't have a lot. Right now I have 0. But suppose that in my line I did have more water than that. Suppose that my line was so instead. Now I have 3 points of water that I can use as an action to remove fire tokens from the board. At the beginning of the game there is only 1, but as you've seen, turn after turn, as players buy cards, there will be more fire. And so suppose I'm going to use my 3 points to remove this token here. Once you remove a fire token, you flip it face down, the number doesn't matter anymore, and you collect it in your play area, and that can be very important for winning. Another action I can take is to buy trees. Again, using this other energy here, the little plant. Right now I have 3 points of that energy. And when you buy trees, you take them from those 2 dispensers there. They're very cute. Look at those. Very cute. Very nice. Well, you can buy multiple animals if you can afford it. You can put out multiple fires if you can afford it. You can always only buy exactly 1 tree with a single action. And when you take your 2 actions, they have to be different unless you find a way of using an effect that lets you break that rule. And there are some that let you do the same thing twice. Usually those 2 actions have to be different. Say, recruiting and put out fires, or put out fires and buying trees. When you buy trees, that is the cost. That is the cost right there. With my measly 3 points for buying trees right now, I could buy, say, one of these, which I then put on my tableau, and again that will generate resources for me and possibly also trigger other abilities. When you add a new tree to your tableau, it needs to be adjacent either to your starting tree or to a tree that already has been placed there. Again, when you complete certain lines or certain rows, you get, or certain columns, you get a specific bonus. When you cover certain areas, you also get bonuses. For example, this way, you get to collect these tokens. These are useful because when you're drawing cards here, if you draw a card that you don't like, you spend one of these tokens and you discard it. So maybe you can remove one of those solitaire things. Also, there may be game effects that will place fire cards in your deck. They're super annoying. They don't do anything. They only add solitary icons, making it harder for you to get nice lines here. And you can spend one of these tokens to remove one of those fire cards and put it back there. So we may get special tokens, special extra abilities, or permanent bonuses. And that's plus, again, the trees will give us stuff like water, recruitment points, and things like that. So that's for the action of buying trees. Then there is an action represented by that little wind, the little mini tornado there, of moving on the main board. And that's an interesting idea. Simply, you will just choose to use the action of moving on the board. You'll count the wind points that you generated, and you'll move the number of spaces on the board clockwise. And you will resolve the action that you land on. Of course, you can also move fewer than that. So if I have 3, I can move 1, 2, or 3. That's a trick, for example, again, to perform the same action twice, because my first action is I put out fires. My second action is totally to move on the board, not to put out fires. Oh, and as an ability, now I can do that. So that's another trick to be able to perform the same action twice. Another important thing, other players will be on the board also. And when you jump over them, when you leapfrog them, you don't count the space they are on, but just by jumping over their head, you can steal one of their tokens. Each player starts with these 3 tokens. Basically, the main purpose is to steal them, to be stolen. I mean, they're good because if you can save them, you can use them. They count towards your supply, for example, towards the number of fire tokens that you have, or flower symbols that you have, or trees that you have. But again, somebody jumps over your head rudely, they can take one of your tokens. When you jump over people's head, you may want to have a big of an advantage. Of course, you jump right in front of them, then they can just do it to you. So usually you're approaching them slowly, and then take a big leap so that you can steal something from them and also protect your own assets. So these are the actions. These are the actions that you are going to take. Buy new cards, put out fires, buy trees, move on the board. Again, depending on how many solitary icons you have here, you're going to take 1 or 2. Usually they're going to be 2 different ones, unless you smartly use the central board, or you gain the super expensive token that lets you perform the same action twice. At the end of the round, if there is, when everybody took their action phase, if there are 5 tokens on the board, we gotta address them. Each player first needs to show that they can take the fire. So basically, you compare the amount of water that players have with the total value of the fire in the forest, which is right now 6, 4, and 2. And so the total amount of water that I have is the one showed on my tableau and on my cards. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's not good. Because if you have less water showing in your line and tableau than the value of the forest and the fire, you take a number of fire cards equal to the difference. There's 5, there's 6 fire, I have 5 water. I take 1 card and goes in my discard pile, and it will be annoying me later. So it's a nice balance here, because putting out fires is nice because you collect these tokens that may help you win, but sometimes you want some fire there because you know you have just enough to be protected, but other players don't, and so they get fire in their deck. So it's the game is cute with the art and the topic, but it has some elements that can be a little confrontational, like, again, manipulating when people get fire tokens, stealing stuff from each other. And again, if people played cards, collected cards here, that generates fire that goes on the board. After they generate fire, you replenish them, and the turn is over. So you've been performing action and collecting stuff to do what? Well, to win the game. And the way to win the game is this. You win if you collect 12 fire tokens, or if you have 12 flowers symbols showing anywhere on your tableau and or in your line. Again, some of these cards have flower symbols at the bottom. If we could find one, some they even remove. Some have negative things. So I have 1 there. My starting deck is not super good. Maybe I can acquire more later. So if there are 12 flowers showing on the in my line, again, and or in my tableau, either on the trees, or if I activated the bonus of that row. Again, if at the end of my phase I can show 12 flowers, then I also win the game. I also win the game if I have 12 unique trees on my tableau. Again, remember, and these tokens also count. So this counts as a fire, this counts as a unique tree. Again, if somebody steals it, then also they may count the stuff for them. So 12 flowers showing, or 12 fire tokens, or 12 unique trees in your area win you the game? Or do they? Because when I heard about that victory condition, when I read about it, I was a little bit worried, like, oh my gosh, it just seems like I'm just going to specialize. Everybody's going to specialize and do one thing. And so it looks like the potential, all these things that you can do is going to be partially squandered. That seemed to be disappointing. Then I played the game, and I was all excited that I had 12 fire tokens, exactly the same turn as my daughter Amelia had 12 trees. So that was interesting. So the first time we played it, we already went to the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker is you count the other things. You count you count everything. Unique trees, fire tokens, and flowers showing. And that turned out to be the turning point of the game, because we played it maybe 7 times. We've been playing quite a while, quite a bit, because we love it. And of those, at least four times the game ended at the tie break. So it looks from the rulebook it's going to be a boring game about specializing early on in one thing. It turns out that it's about specializing. Yes, you still want to trigger the victory condition as soon as possible, but also diversifying, because it's very likely that multiple players will end the game the same turn. If you, at that point, if you have at least 12 of those things, you're not in the tiebreaker, of course. But again, it has happened to us so often that I can't describe this game at all as, oh, it's a game where you specialize in one thing. Well, you can do that, then you're going to lose at the tiebreaker, because that has happened. But again, you can't ignore specializing either, because I have a little bit of everything, but my daughter saw that. Amelia caught me specializing too much, then she's rushing for the victory condition, ending the game early. So it's a surprisingly nuanced game. That was a pleasant surprise right there, because yes, you have to specialize, you must, and you also have to make sure you have a plan B and a plan C, a little bit of fire and a little bit of flowers and a little bit of everything, while you do very well in one thing, so that you can win at the tiebreaker, which again has happened so often. And when we did not win at the tiebreaker, then it was, my daughter Amelia winning one round, winning one turn, and I knew I was going to win the next one. So it's tight. It's really tight with players with matching abilities. It's really tight, which is nice. When my worry was that there was going to be a lot of luck in the drawing of the cards, but although there is a push or luck element, does not seem to be too massive, not to the point of throwing the game out of balance, because there are still so many decisions that you are making when it comes to stopping now, stopping later, which cards you put there. Of course, having gregarious cards is awesome because it cancels the solitary icons, you can have long lines, but they have other kinds of penalties. In general, the cards seem to have been balanced very, very well when it comes to which to cost and what they do and how good they are and what kind of catches they come with to balance. If they look too good on one side, then they'll have something else that doesn't go too well the other way. Again, something that concerned me when I read the rule book, and I'm mentioning in case it concerns you, is like, well, all this thing, the lines for just one action, again, not a problem, because I'm engaged, everybody's engaged as they're preparing the line. And then in most cases, really, most players take 2 actions. And from time to time, you take a single action, but maybe the single action is to put down a tree that gives me an extra action. I move around. My action is to move around, jump over you, steal something, resolve another action. It still feels engaging. I never felt that taking one action was really depriving me of the joy of playing. It didn't feel like skipping a turn. So the game is definitely engaging, is nuanced, it has more things going on, more wheels spinning than I imagined at first. And sometimes I have a very strong plan with my line. I definitely want to recruit something awesome, and it turns out I'm not getting those cards. Then I change my plan as I go. Okay, then what happens if I move instead? Ooh, It's a really surprising game. It is a game that I played only with young players, although, again, my kids now are 9 and 11, so they're not little kids. They're still in the kid/tween range. But this is a game that I think could definitely, hold up at game night with adult friends. I would have no problem taking it out with my hardcore friends. And although say, well, you just buy lands, you just buy trees from round one, what else happens? Booyah, and I beat them at a tiebreak. Although I'm sure, or I think they may have that bias, once you actually play the game, there's just so much more going on here that this is a game that definitely, I think, can please expert gamers. I know it please this one, the one who is speaking behind the camera, because I enjoyed this game very much, and I know I'll be playing it soon because my daughter Amelia in particular, she's very fond of this game. Also, she wins most of the time, so maybe that's also why she likes Living Forest so much. But this is definitely a solid design, one that I enjoyed playing, and one that has more, oh yes, much more than meets the eye. And what meets the eye is pretty because the art is stunning, but the design, I think, is even better.